Hello everyone, welcome to episode 189 of Floating Through Film. This week we continue the experimental series with Maya Deren and to me her three best shorts. But obviously I think all our movies are good, but I just wanted to focus on these three. But as you're going to see in this episode, really, this is kind of just an excuse to talk about Maya Deren, like in general, and her film theory, for me specifically, because maybe get basically another film theory episode in the middle of a normal series. Because, that's probably why she's like most important to me, is like both aspects of her, like the films too, but also how she writes about films. But we're gonna get into that in a second. Let me introduce my co-host here, Luke.
Hello.
And Blake.
What's up?
But yeah, she's literally one of my favorite directors, and it just
she's probably your favorite director you're gonna be talking about in the series, right?
Probably.
Like she's like also like I feel like.
And she's definitely the one I've read the most.
Like you definitely everything. Like. I feel like she kind of is the one that got you interested in experimental film. Is that right?
I mean, probably. I mean, like, honestly, this is the thing about experimental film is my favorite things I've noticed, even over time, a lot of my favorite parts about narrative cinema have been just the non-narrative aspects of it.
Did she bring that to the forefront?
Yes, I mean, yes, she's definitely one of the major ones.
She cut out all of that. It was like,
and
the good stuff.
I guess you could say it. I don't know if she would put it that way. But she talks about a lot of stuff in her writings. Like, so that's kind of... I'm going to go over some of that stuff. But before I get to that, what's your impressions of Maya Deren? What do you know about her?
Good director.
Like, have you guys seen about her? Watched her before?
Yes. Yeah.
Good director.
Like film homework kind of thing?
Film homework?
Wouldn't.
Damn.
No film is homework.
Yeah.
Well, wait, which ones have you seen then? Let's see. Let me play
Meshes, Private Life of a Cat. I think I had seen Ritual and Transfigured Time before. I think that's about it.
Damn.
I haven't seen... I haven't seen A Study in Choreography.
The two Hammond films.
Okay, whoa.
Wait, which ones?
I haven't seen... I mean, I think I've seen basically all of them.
Oh, okay. When did you watch them?
Well, I mean, I've seen Meshes, Atlan, Private Life of a Cat, Witch's Cradle, and...
Oh, wait, I've
Ritual
seen
and Transfigured Time.
Which one did I watch as well? I think I'd seen Meditation on Violence, too, actually.
And I've seen this ensemble for somnambulists. My impression...
I think that's like unfinished or something.
I think it is.
My impressions, she makes really trippy movies, really hypnotic movies. Like, they kind of put me in a trance. Especially, like, Meshes.
See, that's why the first word, trippy, I'm not sure, but the second two I definitely agree with.
You're saying Meshes is not trippy?
I just don't like that word. People associate it with like
psychedelics or something.
Yeah, just like
not
my Deren things basically. But the other two I agree with. Trance for sure. 100%. She would love that.
She has a lot of good ideas, like a lot of like really cool visual ideas that come across, especially in like Meshes, where like she'll just like find different ways to shoot around the house, and like there'll be a new like cool little visual thing that'll come out of nowhere, and you'll be like, whoa, didn't think of that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I don't really know much about her, so...
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I don't want to say too much.
So did you just watch her before because of me?
Yeah.
Like, when did you watch her?
I had no clue who she was before.
Because I hadn't watched her in a while. Like, I honestly read a lot. It was like in 2020... I think it was 2021 and 2022. Like, kind of right before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
And... Honestly, it just felt like a good time to do experimental, and like you kind of already hinted at this, but she's a major reason for doing. Like I couldn't just do a Maya Deren series, so
yeah.
This whole series just makes you talk about Maya Deren forever.
I mean, but honestly, especially next week specifically, her influence on Brackage and kind of like both Brackage is not like how he's like almost the opposite of my Daren, and then also how influential she is on him. And there's all of the Avant-Garde. Like,
Wait, she was Ukrainian?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of her biography in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you, Blake?
No, yeah, I also like her. Don't know much about her. I honestly don't remember when I first watched her either. I know it was a long time ago because I haven't watched her in a while. But no, I echoing a lot of kind of just what Luke said. I just like how, like I said last week, a lot of my favorite things about experimental cinema is just they throw shit at the wall and just see what happens. Basically, like they're just trying new stuff. They're just trying to do things in a new way, and like Maya Deren is definitely like that for sure. Like, it's almost like Meshes, and Meshes is my favorite from her, as well as I'm pretty sure yours and Luke's. I don't know. It's
actually,
one. No, it's not your favorite.
No.
Well, it's one of the best experimental films of all
I
time.
don't know if it's better than Private Life of a Cat.
Damn. I do
I
love
just like
Private
Cats
Life of
too
a
much.
Cat.
I like
I do
Cats.
like that movie.
My love of Cats kind of clouds everything.
That movie's too narrative based though, Luke.
Not when I'm lost in the.
Well,
Cat's cuteness.
more than that, it's more a Hammett's film than hers. That's the real.
Her name is on.
You're saying like her least film is actually her, but
her name is on the. Credits,
and it's obviously
so
like
that's all that
she never
matters.
talks about any of her writings really. Like
It's just a
from what I
documentary.
see.
Because it speaks for itself. You don't
Like,
even have to write about it, dude. It's crazy.
I mean, it's a fun little movie for sure.
It's a fun little movie, which I like a lot.
I do. It's a fun movie. I'm not gonna hate. It's a fun movie, but like, if that had been her only movie, we don't talk about like, this episode.
I would
we
talk
talk
about it.
But this episode,
I would talk.
actually, you probably would have never watched it.
No, I would have found.
Because no one,
one way or the other, I would have found it.
I mean, okay. There's probably what other cat movies have you seen?
Cat listening to music. Directed
No,
by
that's
Chris
another
Marker.
example. In my point, you would have never watched that movie without Chris Marker.
If Chris Marker had only made that, I would have found a way to watch it.
That's what I'm trying to ask. What director have you watched only based on the?
Aristocats.
She's that fucking
yeah.
lying. You watched that because your mom put it on. When you were a
I mean,
kid.
to be fair, it's a great movie.
You still haven't come up with an example, by the way.
Of what? Like
A movie where you watch it just because of the cats. Like a movie you found a way of
every
watching.
cat video ever watched.
Not movies.
Are they not movies?
Not films.
Honestly, some of them like deserve
Those
that
fucking
title.
AI ones where they're like, oh.
Not wait, what?
like the captions, the
I'm not
audio
talking about.
matches the
Those are the voiceover people who take the videos afterwards and kind of, do that to their own
Destroy the
liking. I'm not
footage.
talking about the those things. I'm talking about the videos themselves, the cinema.
I mean, okay, to go back to my Daren a little bit though, it's Brackage did say in one of his lectures that the cat is like the central totem of her life too.
Exactly,
So,
bro. That's what I was thinking.
like
I
she
was gonna
really,
say that.
she
I was
had
gonna
cats
say that,
all over the
actually.
place in her apartments.
I mean, obviously.
Her and Chris Marker would have really.
But like back to you. So what? Okay.
Well, I
is
mean,
there
like
anything-
Meshes of the Afternoon, it's influenced just so much, like that I've seen personally. Like I don't know, like especially just like this figure that's looking at you and it's just a mirror basically reflecting yourself. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I love just Meshes. I don't know. Meshes of the Afternoon is amazing, and it's just like it's showing interesting ways of just filming like with literally one person, like what you can do, because she's going. It's the same shots over and over again. But she's just adding them on top of each other, and I don't know. It's just like it's an interesting way to like make a movie and make it feel amazing, or like make it feel exciting and like something new is happening all the time, whenever it's really not.
Yes.
But I also
well, you
like
could also say it really is because
well, I mean,
if
yes.
the film is reality,
If the film is reality.
But I know what you mean.
But I mean, the other two are also amazing. I hadn't seen those ones even in a longer time than Meshes of the Afternoon, so they were fun to watch again. I like anything shot at a beach, honestly. I figured that out for sure. And then like there's this one specific shot I'm pretty sure that's gonna stick with me like forever, with her like crawling through like basically on a table, and then it's just like also like just going back to like a wilderness setting or whatever every time she's like crawling to. I don't know, that's a great job.
No, that is. I do love that.
No, but I don't know much about her in general either.
Are there any like concepts? Okay.
Well, time for sure.
Okay.
And
there you go.
movement of the body.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. No, I'm definitely going to mention those specifically in these episodes. Like,
Like there was some what I don't remember which movie this one was in. I think it was At Land, but there were things that remind me just of like watching Cocteau. Just like a lot of fairy tale shit happens in her
She
movies,
did like Cocteau, so
okay, that makes sense.
one of the few older directors I remember her mentioning. But yeah, you were talking about the shot of her crawling.
No, well,
which shot?
No, the one that I was thinking, like she just has a lot of like fairy tale type stuff in her movies. Like it just feels like.
Yeah, well, they were both to quote your point, they were both what they consider themselves classical artists. Like more focused on mythology, like kind of seeing their role as artists the same way the classical artists did, like in Greece and stuff. And I'm gonna kind of talk about that in a second, but no, Cocteau is a very. I didn't even think about like. Yeah, I knew she liked him, but I hadn't even thought about him until you mentioned him right now. But Luke, is there any directors that come to your mind when you think of him? Because one person I always hear, like I still haven't watched him, is David Lynch. I still haven't watched Mulholland Drive, but people say
I still haven't seen
she was a big
Lynch
influence on
either.
him.
I need to watch Lynch. It's a big blind spot for me.
When it comes to Lynch, I'm not really sure. I'm not a super expert on him. People I think remind me of her.
I mean, if you can't think of one, it's like honestly, like
Parts of Ritual and Transfigured Time remind me of Rivette.
Ooh,
Like
I actually have a Rivette quote in that section.
Oh really? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because like the whole like things becoming like a dance kind of.
Oh yeah.
Like I would like think of like Duel or something.
Actually, that's what I mean before the podcast I mentioned Demi, and we might bring up Demi because that's that same kind of thing too.
Ooh.
And then I also told you yesterday how Gene Kelly consulted her about her like concept of choreo dance or choreo cinema, she called it. But I mean, I don't know if he ever used this kind of technique.
Yeah, because you haven't watched the movie.
But did he?
I don't know what that is.
Well, maybe like basically making the same you're talking about Rivette, using the film technique to like kind of make the film a dance itself. You know. With the rhythm.
I'm not sure.
But
really, what that technically means. I would need to know the concept more and then rewatch the movies.
I mean, I'll talk about the concept later for the movie, but I do want to talk like I said, this is kind of basically me. I don't have too much on the movie specifically because like we can talk about our favorite moments, but this is like I said, more of me like getting a montage. I mean, FTF theory episode in here, because like. Let me just put it this way. Like with my first quote that I have is from the film theorist P. Adam Sidney, and he said this great.
The song guy?
Yes.
He mentioned him like all the time.
Yeah, I remember. But he's actually an experimental cinema guy. He like wrote one of the first books on like the American Avant-Garde, and like Bresson was like his one exception in narrative cinema that he liked.
Oh, this guy's pictures, he's just the most stereotypical, like, old professor type guy.
And he actually just died this year, R.I.P., I'm pretty sure. Can you check that? No. Yeah, 2025, right?
Yeah, June 8th, 2025.
Yeah, no, because this quote I actually got from, if you want to find this... Actually, fuck, I forgot to mention. Because I always forget. I actually have a lot of sources for this week. So I'm going to mention them now. So first is an essential film theory book. Jonas Mekas actually says it's like in his top 3 books, film books of all time, and it's her kind of like film text that she wrote called "An Anagram of Ideas on Art, Form, and Film." And like the book is actually even like the chapters are in anagram form, so she says you can kind of read it in any direction you want. You know, it's not necessarily like a linear form, which is kind of funny, but and also great. But then another one is an essay she wrote called "The Creative Use of Reality." It's called Cinematography, the Creative Use of Reality. And then another essay, Ritual and Transfigured Time. All 3 of these are in this book called Essential Deren Writings. Another one, essay by Sarah... actually, this was a book by Sarah Keller called Incomplete Control that I read like a few years ago, and I went back to. And then this other book, Maya Deren and the American Avant-Garde Essays. And there's like 3 different authors I have like some notes from in this. Bill Nichols, he wrote the introduction. Renata Jackson wrote this essay called "The Modernist Poetics of Maya Deren," and Annette Milkison wrote this essay called "Poetics and Savage Thought." And then also A.L. Rees, I think I mentioned last week. He also talks about Maya Deren. I think I have something for him. But okay, yeah. So P. Adams Sydney. Let me read the quote first. He says, quote, "One thing we can be sure of, that the division of praxis and theory, which is one of the favorite anti-intellectual myths, is not true. And one finds that the primary activity of film theory has been in the hands of the primary filmmakers." Just a great quote. I mean, you guys can kind of see what he's saying. Just like, basically, the primary activity of film theory has been in the hands of the primary filmmakers. I think it's pretty basic. But Maya Deren's just like honestly one of the essential people for me for that. And Bill Nichols actually says this in his introduction, that like she kind of gets overshadowed because like she's basically become this kind of like, the way he puts it is like almost like a commodified feminist icon, where like, oh, she's like the early feminist that made Measures Afternoon, the kind of surrealist movie. But like, people actually really don't talk about her film theory like the same way they talk about Eisenstein or Vertov or like even Toulouse or something, or even Jonas Mekas or Brakhage definitely. But she's basically on their level, and that's kind of what I'm that's kind of why I'm doing this episode in the first place, because like she has so many good ideas, like basically in all these, like when I talk about non-narrative, and a lot of times when I mention Bresson, like even doing this prepping for this episode, I realize how much like sometimes I'll think about Bresson like as an influence, or like some idea that I've had about film, and it's really like Maya Deren, because of how much I've read about her, and like how like her ideas of like what film form should do, and like as like already mentioned, time and movement, like essential parts of Bresson as well, obviously, but like you could even say Maya Deren more so. And Annette Mikkelsen, she makes this good point where she says like there's a similarity between Eisenstein and Maya Deren, where like it seems like both of their productivity in like making films seems to be almost like spurred by like the fact that their theoretical, she said the way their theoretical productivity may have been stimulated by and compensated for by the frustrations encountered in practice. So basically like they almost like started becoming film theorists because of like frustrations they encountered while trying to make movies. And like in Maya Deren's case, it's almost like a cycle for her. Like she talks about how like each film is like almost a different kind of goal for her, because of her, like she makes a film and then she realizes she needs to do something else, and that's how like she tries to make another film, and she realizes her goal changes after making that third film. She even says like in the first film she wanted to create experience. In the second film, that's Outland, she says reality must exploit the capacity of film to manipulate time and space. We're not doing the third film because I think she's talking about choreography for camera, I'm pretty sure. But she says that film, filmically visual, insisting this time on a filmically visual integrity, which would create a dramatic necessity of itself rather than be dependent on or deprived from underlying dramatic development. So basically, try to create a visual integrity of itself, except without relying on drama. And then Ritual and Transfigured Time is this fourth film she's talking about, where she says special attention must be given to the creative possibilities of time, and then form as a whole should be ritualistic. Obviously, like that's the title of the film is. But yeah, that's kind of the that idea of like basically making films and writing up about films are like a cycle. They're the same thing, like, and that's why I love reading about filmmaking. Like that's why I always focus on film when I want to read about films. I go to the filmmakers first, like even before I go to secondary sources or like letterbox reviews or etc. Because especially for filmmakers I care about, like they're the ones. It's this idea, like they're struggling with theory, and practice is, and vice versa. They're struggling with practice, and that's why they write. And that's why, like, I feel like so many times when I'm this is just my opinion, but like to fully get engaged with these filmmakers like Eisenstein, like Deren, like Vertov, and I say fully engaged because you can still get a lot of stuff out of these films, just by watching them, But to fully engage with them, you kind of at least have to know what their ideas were, But before I go on, I don't know. Let me give some intro to like her biography. So, she was born. Her name was Eleonora Derenkowski in Kiev, Ukraine. And then she had to flee because her parents were Jewish, and she had to flee to America. Her father was like there's honestly actually some kind of interesting writings about this, but her father was like a psychoanalyst, like a famous psychoanalyst in Russia at the time, and there's like some kind of good writings of like even how that could have influenced some of her films and stuff later on, even though she really hated psychoanalysis. But she got the film she makes with like Alexander Hammond, Meshes. That's actually her second husband. She was married once before that. Then she got married to Alexander Hammond. I think in like the early 40s or late 30s.
Whose full last name is Hackenschmied. Hackenschmied.
Damn, I didn't actually know that.
Hackenschmied.
Alexander Hackenschmied.
There's no way that's
Hamid is easier to remember.
Yeah, he's a Czech American.
But then she changed her name from Eleonora to Maya, and Maya is I guess technically in Sanskrit the word for illusion, which
Damn, so she was really committed to the aesthetic.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Well, last name change is crazy.
That kind of makes her Hollywood in a way, even though she didn't like Hollywood.
Like imagine if what would Bresson change his name to? If he was
what if he did?
Well,
Do we know that was his real name?
What would be his name? Robert.
Check if that was his real name. I don't know. I think it was.
It had to be like John or something.
Look it up. You have to Google.
Well, no, I'm saying, but like, what if he changed his name?
Oh, if he changed it to something on his own?
That's what I was saying.
No, I'm trying to see what if he did change it to Robert Bresson.
It's just Robert Bresson.
Oh, okay. What would he choose? I don't know, because it'd probably be something French though.
But like, let's say like English, like he moves to America.
Like John, Robert would fine.
Robert
fine, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it'd fit perfect. Rob.
Bob.
Bob. He goes by Bob.
Bob Bresson.
Bob Bresson.
Bob Bresson. Damn.
Wait, that sounds like Bob Bresson.
That sounds so weird.
I guess
that
sounds like a French dish or something. Bob Bresson. Am I feeling it? No. Alright, I'll show you.
Bill Nichols says, you kind of said this about me, where I started into experimental cinema because of Maya Deren. But Bill,
that was a guess, by the way.
You're not wrong,
Okay.
kind of in a way. But I don't know. It's hard because like I feel like people get into experimental cinema because they're interested in experimental cinema. That's why I say I kind of mentioned this about Maya Deren being like a feminist icon. Like some people watch Maya Deren because like they're trying to do some homework, boost the woman filmmaker stats.
Who you calling out right now? Say
Me,
it by
I'm
name.
calling out me when I first started. No, I got no, I'm kidding. Well, but I'm maybe a little bit.
Is there anyone in mind though?
I'm not calling out anyone specifically.
Okay. Keep
I'm just saying like the way, because like especially Meshes being her most popular movie, it's like a classic case of like what are the views on Meshes compared to every other all of her other films, and like you could watch all of her films like fucking an hour, that's what's
easy.
crazy, and it's still I'm like okay we got to watch Meshes,
Okay, Meshes 145,000.
That's not a lot
watches.
either, though. 30,000 per hour.
Atland has 30K.
My point is made.
But how does The Private Life of
My
a
point
Cat
is-
only have 14K? Like, damn.
Yeah, it just keeps dropping.
But that's my whole fucking point though.
The
And like this is
ritual.
like it's even more true because that's her first movie, and Brackage even says this. Like he says the main reason people consider it her best is because it still has this slick style that Hamid brings to it because he was actually a filmmaker in Europe in the 30s as like a documentary filmmaker, and he basically studied as a craftsman, and Brackage basically says like that's like the kind of style people are still drawn to is that kind of almost like expressionistic style that he brings from Europe. And then you get to her later movies and they're more her own style. Like in Outland, she specifically wanted she didn't want Hamid involved on purpose because she wanted her own style to stand out. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but the reason why Private Life of a Cat got made was because, or one of the reasons was because apparently Alexander Hammond was kind of getting jealous that Maya Deren was getting all the credit for Meshes of the Afternoon, when like both of them technically made it. They were both directors on it, and he's the one that kind of talked her to like the film aspects of like the technical aspects anyway. But yeah, so that's another to get to my point about that's how people approach her usually.
But see, if that's the case, then wouldn't the expressionism come from Maya Deren then? And Ritual, or not Ritual, and Meshes of the Afternoon, because Private Life of a Cat is way different from the Meshes of the Afternoon.
Well, the ideas
like,
are definitely
way
hers.
different.
I think even he admits that, like the ideas are more hers. So it's more just the style of the film, like how it's shot.
But the ideas are where the expressionism comes from.
Well, I was talking more
guess the way-
expressionistic in style, not the ideas. The ideas are still mostly hers. You can still tell that.
Yeah.
And it's honestly kind of even more interesting that he's more involved as a director, because it's kind of been like anti-him film, because they got
Oh, it
divorced.
definitely is. It definitely is an anti-him film.
Yeah. Or like just anti, like a man kind of trapping you in a way. I guess you can read it in a lot of ways. That's one of the best parts of this film. It's so open.
But Private Life of a Cat definitely feels like a documentary.
Yeah, 100%.
Although it also feels like a drama at some points.
Yeah, her narration over it and stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's a great movie. I'm not gonna lie, I love it. It just
You just hate it.
You just hate it.
no, I couldn't hate something she did. But I was about to say this, but Bill Nichols kind of agrees with me this idea of starting experimental cinema because of her.
Yeah.
Because he says, like most people, she doesn't contribute to a film movement. She actually started her own, which is in a way the American avant-garde. Because like, she's one of the main reasons like experimental or avant-garde cinema even got popular.
No, I'm pretty sure I read or heard somewhere that she like had a house like when she lived in, I think she lived in New York, right, or something. Wherever she lived at, I think it was New York, and she had a house where like a lot of experimental filmmakers would like stay at when they didn't have anywhere like else to like go because they were all like broke.
Yes, actually, Brackett was one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I listened to a lecture where he talks about like he didn't even know her that well, and he called her up because he had to stay in New York or something.
Yeah.
And he just stayed at her house for like 6 months, and that's where he really got to know her. But he's like, he even says it's like there wasn't one week where she didn't have someone on the couch just sleeping there.
No, yeah, I heard that somewhere.
No. Someone else said this too. Like even like the way she was in her real life was just way more like because by the time you get to like Ritual and stuff, yes, it's her acting, but she's very almost like person like a model, like you know.
Yeah.
It's not like her like Mecca says in her real life, her personality was like, you know, she was crazy. In a good way, I guess, but
Crazy.
no, because
very ominous.
well, I mean, I haven't done too much reading about this yet, but she actually in her later life she wrote this book on Haitian voodoo, and she became like a really an expert on it, and she even traveled there and like tried to make a film about it. You can even log it too. I'm pretty sure it's unfinished. But she like this book apparently is still really respected in like or it was at the time in anthropology circles. I don't know if it still is. Yeah.
Did she like,
and she like technically what?
She liked I Walked with a Zombie.
Probably not, because like she was apparently one of the few people they actually let become initiated, like that were outside that was actually white at the time. And they actually let her film. That's why like this footage she filmed was actually she was trying to make this film, and then when she tried to make it, she was like, "I can't." It's like doing basically injustice to the film or to like make it a film or whatever. I don't remember exact reasons, but yeah, there's definitely some controversy with how she died and stuff too.
I mean, she definitely died young. Yeah,
she did. Like she was like. She was addicted to some drugs. Like apparently there was some like famous doctor in New York that would give people these like. I forget. Is it? It was like I forget. It was if it was meth or like methamphetamines or something. You know, some stimulant. But she apparently got addicted to it.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I don't know how we got there, but yeah. We were talking about her biography.
Let's have.
Yeah, because she did die young, which is sad. But okay, to keep going, I have a few categories that, you know, because I mentioned her book was called an anagram of ideas on art, form, and film. And that order specific because it's almost like a, art is like the umbrella, and then form is inside of it, and then film is inside of that, But the way she, it's an anagram, so she says you can go either direction, any way you want to read it, because it's all, like she says, it's all supposed to be one. It's one integral whole. It's not supposed to be linear in a way. But the reason I brought that up is because the categories I have are basically, I have some quotes on how she sees what the artist's role is, and then I have some quotes on what she sees art's role as, like what art as a whole is, and then like some stuff on like how she sees film specifically. And so this is honestly maybe one of her most famous quotes. So I'll just go ahead and read it first. Quote, "For the serious artist, the aesthetic problem of form is essentially and simultaneously a moral problem. Nothing can account for the devoted dedication of the giants of human history to art form, save the understanding that for them, the moral and aesthetic problems were one and the same, that the form of a work of art is a physical manifestation of its moral structure." And the way Renata Jackson puts this is she says, basically because aesthetics are conscious expressions of human values and material form, ethical issues and aesthetic issues are the same thing. And that's that's why, I'm mentioning like this idea of theory, directors writing and the directors making films. It's that same kind of idea. It's like, usually we think of like when we write something, that's when we're like, talking about ethics, or something. And then a film could be more form or escapist, maybe like basically those are two separate issues almost, at least the way most people kind of divide their life, almost as politics and art as separate things. But like for these like especially for Eisenstein, but even for Maya Deren, like this idea of a moral problem, like what you believe in, and then the form you use being the same thing. That's where this kind of struggle between theory and practice comes in, And she mentions in her book an example of this are World War II documentaries at the time, where she says, quote, "Surely the vacant eyes and the desolated bodies of starved children deserve and require, in the moral sense, something more than the maudlin cliches of tourist camera or the skillful manipulations of a craftsman who brings to them the techniques developed for and suitable to the entertaining demonstration of the manufacture of a Ford car," unquote. And basically she's saying, like, we bring these same techniques we use to film, tourism, like the way a tourist camera is used, and like how we film like Ford commercials is the same way we're, filming like these kind of war footage of like children dying and stuff. And like that's like one example to her of this idea of like the form and the moral content not matching.
I don't remember if I brought it up on the Rivette series about him talking about him writing about the tracking shot in Capo, I think it's called, the Ponte Corvo movie, where like it's like a dead it's like about a movie about the Holocaust, and then like there's a moment in the movie I'm pretty sure where like the camera for like some sort of effect kind of like is a tracking shot onto like a prisoner who's dead on the fence, and it's like a tracking shot to like their hand or something, and like he like wrote about how much he like hated it. Mm-hmm. It's like, why would you use a film technique?
Yeah,
on something that tragic.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I brought it up in the.
I don't. You might have, but no, that's a good example too. Honestly, that like I thought you were gonna point out. I haven't even seen this movie, but Saving Private Ryan.
Ooh.
Like basically that's like almost like a total those two things, but like creating to go oppose that an example to her of a good example of an artist exemplifying the moral and aesthetic at the same time is, she says, The Shield in Ancient Times, because she says, quote, "Can anything testify better to the skill with the primitive artist was able to fuse all functions, mythological, material, and aesthetic, into a single form? But does the modern primitive even aspire, much less achieve, such fullness of dimension?" No, and I kind of like that.
I found it. Okay, sorry, I found it.
No, go ahead.
For the Capo one.
Yeah.
Look, however, in Capo, the shot where Riva commits suicide by throwing herself on electric barbed wire. The man who decides at this moment to make a forward tracking shot to frame the dead body, carefully positioning the raised hand in the corner of the final framing. This man is worthy of the most profound contempt. That's Riva's writing.
Yeah. I like how he's more, because he definitely wrote a lot of reviews and stuff. Like, he's just more directly critical.
Yeah, yeah.
My Darren's more like, I think I might have, actually, it might still be further on. I have this quote about her saying, like, she still likes dreaming with the other dreamers in the modern cinema or something. But, like she's like everyone else. And she even says it's kind of funny how basically films are the closest things to dreams that people experience, you know. But okay, yeah, to go back to what I had, next I said my next category was just art in general. And she says a lot of stuff, but I tried to go through my notes and just find some of my favorites, maybe most essential to me. Because first she says, this is something that's going to sound similar to Rossellini in some ways too, which I realized. Even though you could say their styles are almost opposed, like opposite, and just like how they approach like editing and stuff. But I see a lot of similarities between them too, because she says art is a twofold process of discovery and invention at the same time, which is kind of interesting, you know, because that's where like Rossellini is like the documentary aspect, but also the art aspect, you know, trying to combine these two in the same film, and she's kind of trying to do the same thing. And she says like the camera is kind of the perfect thing for this, because like the camera is able to do both at the same time, where it can experience reality. As she says, that's what discovery is experiencing reality, but then invention is using that reality to manipulate it into art, which is what she says invention is. And doing that, camera, she says, can do that both at the same times, just through editing. You know, it can film, it can discover something, and then also create a new reality, which is art's supposed to do through, you know, invention. And then she says a different point where she says, art is the dynamic relationship between reality that man has access to, the crucible of man's imagination and his intellect. And then the third point is the art instrument is used to realize his imaginative manipulations. And basically those three, there's a dynamic relationship between those three as what she considers art. And I think that's it's kind of like, it's just like a very simple way to almost think about like what the different layers in art, you know, that are trying to happen at the same time. Especially that's why she loved film so much, because it almost like the camera kind of gives this it gives almost like reality in a way, like directly, you know, through the camera, like an impersonal reality, you know. And that's kind of why I'm almost excited to talk about Brackage next week, because she really, in a way, she didn't like the abstract. She knew about the absolute filmmakers that we talked about last week, and she really didn't like the pure abstract forms. Because I think I remember I ended last week with saying why even the absolute filmmakers themselves maybe strayed away from it was because they saw those like French avant-garde filmmakers where they were basically achieving this kind of abstractnness, but still filming reality itself, you know. And that's what Maya Deren liked, was you can still achieve that while still filming reality directly. Like Blake said, it can be really simple things too that you're filming. Like Meshes is like, honestly, I mean, it's a great film. It's like it should be taught just for how simple it is, you know. But another point, obviously, if you've listened to this podcast, I've mentioned this over and over again, is this idea of presentation versus representation. And let me just read her quote, because she kind of goes like, 'cause she really didn't like Meshes. Like over time, she started to like she even stopped screening Meshes at the afternoon, because so many people read it in this kind of like surrealist, symbolic interpretations, you know, where they would almost like take like psychoanalytic theories and like apply it to the film. And she really hated that. She wanted like basically no symbols. It's a very Bresson thing. Like basically the image is just an image, you know. It doesn't mean anything before you use it, you know. It's almost empty of meaning before only the relationships that you create with the images create something. That's why she hated these psychoanalytic readings of like people bringing the ideas already that they had about a knife or a flower or a hand or something, and applying it to the film. Because she says, quote, "For if it were a symbol, its meaning would reside outside the work, in whatever reality object or event it represented, as a substitute or had reference to. I stress this independence of an image created by the work of art itself, because there is a tendency today to regard all images as symbols, to insist that nothing is what it is, but that it must, quote unquote, stand for something else." Honestly, that's like one of the most perfect ways you could talk about presentation versus representation. Representation to that idea. And I kind of mentioned this maybe with Cocteau, but Renata Jackson, she kind of made this point in her essay about this like modernist tradition, which is kind of the early 1900s to mid 1900s, which is kind of especially in like film theory and just like academic circles, has gone out of fashion. And one of the reasons she says that is because this modernist art movement, which is also called classical in some circles, and negatively as essentialist, was this idea of, a lot of them believed, like, especially with film, like, they believed film is a unique art form that has unique capabilities that only film should be able to do. It has almost like essential attributes in a way, And just like, basically, not to get too philosophical and stuff, but like with postmodernism, this idea of anything being essential, even anything having like a direct kind of essential meaning, just wouldn't make sense, So that's why like a lot of these kind of film theorists, in a way, became out of vogue. But it's funny, like these are the only film theorists, in a way, because like they're the ones that believed about film in this way to write about it, theoretically, the same way like a scientist would write about theories on whatever they believe is actually true, And she mentions like because we've already done a few of these people. She mentions Bazin's realist aesthetic. We've done him. She mentions Eisenstein's dialectical montage. We've done him. She mentions Vertov's theories of intervals. We've kind of done him because I talked about him. And then she mentions, none of us, I don't even think have any of you seen Gene Epstein's movies?
I have not.
Clever say Jeffrey Epstein.
This guy.
There's more than one
The
Epstein.
New York financiers.
It is crazy that every time, like, that is all that's going to come up if you Google Epstein now.
Yeah, unfortunate.
But this is the better Epstein. He had this apparently concept
really?
called photogeny. I don't know how to say that. Photogeny. And she also mentions, this was an OG guy named Rudolf Arnheim, his kind of formless aesthetic. But she says Maya Deren, what she gives, like I mentioned those other kind of concepts they have. Basically, she says, Maya Deren gives both, quote, an aesthetic of experimental or avant-garde film practice itself. So basically, this idea of this experimental film outside of even just like a normal film, kind of even bringing that to the fore itself is like a major thing. And then she also had these metaphors of a film having a horizontal and a vertical aspect to it, and it's really related to this idea I brought up last week, and also on the Rossling episodes of poetry versus prose. This idea of like prose being the horizontal aspect of a film, the narrative, the causal linear narrative, but the vertical aspect being almost the poetic aspects of a film, and as you can see, like she strongly emphasized verticality, she almost saw to Annette Mickelson, she saw verticality as experience versus horizontally as drama. And like basically she says every film has these and stuff, but it's like the kind of like the relations. But to keep going, I'll go to how she saw the art of film. Yeah, that's where I was, because I just talked about art. Now I'm gonna go to film. So first I want to say, I said I had that quote where she says she calls others, she still enjoys on occasion sleeping with the other sleepers in a cinema, which I thought was funny. But she says the main problems with entertainment cinema is basically to omit the miraculous potential of film itself. and like that's why I mentioned this horizontal versus verticality. Is like basically she saw almost like using these film techniques as emphasizing the verticality of what film can do, outside of just like a linear drama. But she also says, okay, I have another quote too. I already mentioned this about the art of art itself, but she says, quote, "Nothing can be achieved in the art of film until its form is understood to be the product of a completely unique complex, the exercise of an instrument which can function simultaneously, both in terms of discovery and invention," unquote. And then she says at a different point, like, it's almost to the point where the camera gives the impression that it's a living consciousness for how well its ability to do both of these things at the same time. And it's like to the point where she sounds a lot like Bertov, this idea of like the camera having its own capabilities and powers that like we can use, to kind of show a new reality outside of just, documentary, just representing what we already see. And she says, a true film is when the elements are related according to a special character of the camera and editing, so that a new reality emerges, which could only be possible via this camera and editing. And I think that's a great way to say that too, because she says, and this is like a important part too, like, she says this idea of watching a film this way is not only for the filmmaker, but it's really important basically to have audiences that are willing to watch films this way, because if not, she says it's like when it's like she says if there's people standing in a crowd and you're waiting for a specific face in the crowd because you're waiting for them to come see them or something, you might ignore basically everything else that's going around you. She says all the new reality going around you because you're expecting something you've already seen. She says that's how most people actually watch films. This idea of just expecting something that you've already seen instead of just actually paying attention to the new thing being created in front of you, that only film could do. And I think that's like a really like simple example. Sorry, I had a good drink. But and it always that idea reminded me of this quote from Mani Call that he said. Let me just read it. It says, quote, "I once asked my Ustad, will there ever be another Tansen in India?" Which I think is like a master. And he said, quote, he said, "You need people who can listen. If there are people to listen, then yes, there can be another like him. Till there are such listeners, it will be very difficult because you need people with taste." And then he says, "There have to be people who can sit and watch. You need a spirit for that. But where there is no matter, such audience is impossible." And I think like both of them emphasizing that is like such a big part of like these types of movies, because they're not just made in a way for content. Like I said, almost like this horizontal aspect of film. They're made for experience, or the vertical aspect, and that experience basically that implies a viewer. It's the viewer's experience that it's made for. It's not made for just the on-screen images. That's just there to get to the experience for a viewer. But to kind of achieve that, that's why you get experimental cinema in the first place. Which is one definition was just non-narrative or non-conventional. Whatever that could be. Whatever the convention is at the time, which is. In a way, you could almost say that's what makes classic movies, for our kind of audience, almost experimental, because they're so different compared to our conventional cinema. You notice their styles, and they almost become like new styles in a way, the way like old Hollywood acting is, versus like what we see now, versus the naturalistic acting or whatever.
I mean, what even is the new style now? Netflix-like movies?
That is true. I don't know.
Or just comic book movies, that type of myth building instead of like...
yeah. But honestly, even like you could say in the art cinema circuit, that's more that I'm saying. You get the more naturalist aspect acting and...
yeah.
That kind of... I don't know. It's hard to define, I guess. I guess it's not as defined as when I say Hollywood classical style acting, you kind of know what I'm saying, you know.
Definitely.
I don't know if there's one modern kind of style like that now. I think I've mentioned this idea of, this is another thing I've already kind of talked about with presentation versus representation, but I've talked in with Bresson, where I mentioned this idea of the no absolute value in the image, which is basically something I think about all the time, because like I said, what that means is you're kind of, the image is only there to, as she says, quote, in film the image can only, this is not actually a direct quote, this is my but she says, in film the image can and should only be the beginning, the basic material for creative action, you know. And she says, quote, once we abandon the concept of the image as the end product and the consummation of the creative process, we can take a larger view of the total medium. The images, which what the camera provides him, are like fragments of a permanent, incorruptible memory. Their individual reality is in no way dependent upon their sequence in actuality, and they can be assembled to compose any of several statements. In film, the image can and should only be the beginning, the basic material of the creative action. And it's just so good, because like every time a filmmaker mentions the words fragments, my ears just perk up, because they're going to start talking about, you know, this idea of like, what?
So your ears perked up.
My ears
Perked up
perked
is really
up.
funny.
Why? Is that not how the statement is? Did I get that
That's
wrong?
how the statement is.
Just
yeah.
the mental image of your ears.
I mean, especially like what I said, when a filmmaker says that, I'm like, okay, now they're talking. You know, now they're talking about. They start mentioning the word
It was
fragments.
just like I thought it was funny.
It's because she had read Bresson, you know, 20 years before. No, not kidding. Actually, she might have wrote this around the same time. I forgot what year she wrote this.
Did Bresson have any idea who she was?
That, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. So that's a good question. But anyway, because, quote, this is one of my favorite Bresson quotes. He says, quote, in this language of images, one must lose completely the notion of the image. The images must exclude the idea of image, unquote. Just like, I mean, that's just so good. And it's kind of almost exactly what she was saying. This idea of, she says later on, the intrinsic whole of a film should not come from the intrinsic value of the elements, but from the function of the elements in relationship to all the others. Just another way of saying, you know, no absolute value in any one element of a film, but it's really the rhythm of them in relationship. But yeah, okay, one more. Yeah, let me go. My last topic was basically time, because that's like her one element of film that she kind of emphasized the most. And it's funny because she mentions documentary as a okay, she says like what makes photography okay, she says, quote, the very nature of photography makes a naturalistic method more appealing than any other art form. And basically saying like, oh, the way photography is itself, the idea that we do get what we see as a natural or a real image, it almost draws us to naturalism itself because of how real the photograph is. You know, so almost filmmakers are scared to do anything else outside of that. You know, they're scared to like almost go beyond naturalism because it's like photography is almost geared towards that in a way. And that's why she says like so much of films are just kind of drawn to basically, you know, record a kind of a story, you know, instead of using the camera to create the story in a way, as I'm going to point on for her, to create time, you know, to create actually new ways of seeing reality through film, you know. And she says in this way, film is closer to music and dance than the plastic arts, because what's important is not what anything is at any given moment, but, quote, what it is doing or how it's becoming. Its composition over in time is what's important, rather than what's happening in space. And that relates film, she says, much closer to music and dance than it is to, you know, painting or photography, which is, you know, a very, you know, those she mentions those arts on purpose because those are time arts. You know, they're not plastic arts, as we say. because she says an action taking place in time is not the same thing as an action being created by the exercise of time. I think that's like another interesting way of putting this idea of like, well, there's one there's one way of just recording time, but there's a way of actually editing to where you can create new ways of perceiving time itself outside of just recording, you know, the way we perceive time regularly, you know. And she says in a way of giving new meaning to the images through this, what she says is editing or time in film, you know.
And it can be as simple as reversing the film, basically.
Actually,
like going backwards in
100%.
time, not even forwards.
No,
That's one of the easiest ways.
yes. Actually, I do have some lists of like techniques that she kind of gives, and that's one of them she gives is basically reversing motion. She says a simple technique of reversing motion can give the impression of an undoing of time. In her words, you know, this idea of like just reversing the film motion is like the way of like, because my favorite example is the meshes when she goes through the window. And then all of a sudden she pulls the reverses the footage and like she's like going backwards through the window, you know.
Yes.
Just the idea of like undoing of time of like what she just saw. But it's just so simple, camera wise, but like the way we perceive time is so different, you know, just from that simple trick. But my favorite one is she gives the technique wise is she calls what's slow motion, which is, you know, she's a slow mo master, the OG Michael Bay. No, I'm kidding.
OG John Woo.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't. He might. I could see John Woo like.
I could see John Woo knowing about Maya Deren.
I hope he would like her. He would definitely like how she viewed slow motion, though.
Definitely.
Because she says slow motion is the microscope of time, which I love. And she makes this great point where she says, slow motion is something that exists only in our mind, because it needs a reality that your mind already recognizes before you can understand it as slow motion. You know? So, like, to understand that something is moving in slow motion, you have to understand what its normal motion is first. And then you can kind of relate it to, oh, now it's moving slow. You know? So if you see a body moving slowly, you're like, oh, you know what a normal body looks like. So that's how you know what slow motion is. You know, it's like a relative comparison in your head. And then she gives this idea of, this example of, like, if you think of just like a normal conversation that happens in normal time, it could happen. You could see it as one way, but then if you slowed down the whole conversation and you just watched people's reactions in slow mo, like she says, quote, you can see the conversation is filled with indecisions, defiances, hesitations, distractions, anxieties that's not normally noticed. And honestly, just reading that, this is just a totally different context, but that makes me think of I wonder what she would have thought of this, but it makes me think of slow motion and how it's used in sports for instant replay. Because think about how much we judge a ref based on a version of time they never see, which is the slow motion shot after. You know, they're only getting to see real time at a certain angle, and then we're seeing almost a newly created reality through the slow motion that happens after, and then we're judging this ref based on this reality that only we're seeing. You know,
some of them are really dumb.
Fuck them though, yeah.
I mean, some of them are dumb, but still, we're still judging them on a dumbness we're not seeing. We never see their angle.
But some dumbness is so dumb that it exceeds that, I should say.
But would you have told me that call at their angle? That's what I'm saying.
Depends on the call, but I'm just saying there are instances.
See, that's the thing. We already see ourselves as some like detached viewer of like.
I'm always right. I'm always right.
No.
They should low-key have me on call.
Like, they should just go to you,
they're
like, wait, he's not answering, like, he's asleep right now. He's taking a nap.
Sounds like a plan to me.
And like, I don't have to see it, I already know. So,
yeah.
Jets ball. Just she also talks about, this is important because of Ritual and Transfigured Time. She gives another example of the negative image.
Yeah. As
basically an inversion of values, and like the idea of the widow turning into a bride at the end. One more thing, like before we get to the movies, I just have to read what makes her like kind of experimental is some of my favorite quotes about her and just like money and just how she viewed her kind of, you could say, simple means. First, he says, quote, "I make my films for what money cannot buy," unquote. And another quote, "I make my pictures for what Hollywood spends on lipstick," unquote. Quote, "What still inspires me the most is the capacity of cinema to create new magic realities by the most simple means, with the mixture of imagination and ingenuity in equal parts. To achieve on film the sense of an endless, frustrating flight of stairs, the great Hollywood studios would probably spend hundreds on the building of a set. You, however, can do it for the price of film required to photograph any stairway 3 times." And then she says, this is like one of my favorite examples of, she kind of, like some other kind of early filmmakers, they kind of lamented sound coming into film. Because, as she puts it, basically she says the literary approach was really heavily influenced by the approach of sound. And she says it might have been better for films if the film industry was never able to afford the cultural pretension of buying literary writers, but was instead forced to continue in the silent tradition. And in one case, she mentions Keaton and his quote, "remarkable grasp of film form, intuitive grasp." But then this is the quote where she mentions Mack Sennett and Chaplin too. In the early days, the industry was in complete disrepute. It could not afford to buy rights, hire playwrights, or trained actors, or indulge in a vast personnel and division of labor. It had consequently to rely upon and develop its own resources. The most frequent practice was to work with a very limited crew, most of whom had no previous professional standing to lose, and would therefore try anything. In this way, the films become a collaborative effort of the crew, rather than the current assembly line product of a hierarchical, myopic division of labor. Above all, for sheer lack of writers who would deign to concern themselves with the movies, the films were often, quote-unquote, written on the spot by the camera, according to a very skeletal, vague story plot. The masterpieces of Mack Sennett and Chaplin derive precisely from this procedure. And she's already, that means she's already seen the kind of experimental methods in these early filmmakers. Yeah. Like Chaplin.
Well, we have your poster up there, the Kid Auto Race. That just is literally all about just putting camera up and see what the hell happens. If you throw a tramp in a crowd.
That's just like she even says would therefore try anything. Yeah. Because they had very limited crews and they have to worry about this kind of huge studios. But yeah, that's
they later became the studios though.
That is true.
Created the formula.
That is true. Also, yeah, but she. I think it's also important she mentions those 3 directors that were also behind them in front of the cameras too.
No, yes, for sure.
As long as you get to keep complete control, you can go to the studio system. But that's also another point she's making. Even though this was technically studios, there were still limited crews compared to by the time Hollywood was operating. With all these huge equipments and sound, filming the sound movies in the 40s was not like filming the sound movies today. It was a lot of equipment and labor and stuff, just for the process of filming it. Yeah, we'll go to that's a good way to go to meshes, because the first question I was going to ask you guys is, did you guys watch this with the sound or not?
No.
Silent?
I think I watched it with the sound.
Which score? I don't remember the score. I watched the silent.
I don't know.
It was a Teiji Ito?
I don't know.
Damn, okay. I'll go ahead. Either way, what do you guys think? Meshes
really
specifically?
Good movie.
Is there anything that comes to mind? I don't know, what comes to mind when you think of it?
I feel like I talked about meshes already at the beginning, so I can let Luke go. But mine is always mine was just how much she's doing with so little, honestly. Just these reusing of shots to create new shots or a new experience, basically, as maybe you would put it. But
the way she films stuff around the house is cool, and the images are cool. The editing, really cool.
Is there anything specific that stands out?
Just the images.
They all feel like a fairy tale. All 3 of these feel kind of very fairy tale / mythological. Yeah. This one I feel is very. I can see this being Alice in Wonderland almost. The house is literally just this different reality than what's outside. Because every time she goes up to the top, it's just like adding on more to like the reality of the outside. I don't know.
Yeah. Damn, I can see that. Especially like almost like
I thought of that land more as Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
walking
actually, I
up
can
on
see
shore.
Cause like
even the way she moves through the world.
Just
too.
moving through the world, meeting people.
And as she leaves too, kind of.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is honestly something I only thought about the end because I rewatched Ritual today, and all three of these movies end with characters like basically ending near water or kind of like related to water in some way.
Yeah.
You know, like this idea of going back to water. Mesh just has kind of maybe the most interesting with that, with like the kind of glass shattering on the
on the beach.
you know.
Cool as hell.
I don't know. Do you see it as a happy ending or as a sad ending?
Neither.
So what do you think happens at the end? Because like he like
the husband comes and tries to kill her or something, or she kills him.
Yeah. Wait. No. Because remember she kills herself at the end. She's like she's committed suicide at the very end.
Yeah.
But maybe in the dream. It's hard to say specifically, but like basically, if I just explain the narrative, at least how I see it, is she kind of comes home and then she starts dreaming, and this is where, or you can honestly say the movie even starts in a dream too. But she comes home, starts dreaming, and in this dream she starts seeing her like kind of her various selves.
Well, yes.
Dealing with this man.
Well, I would
and
just say like seeing your daily life go like this is how just like daily life is. Like, you're just walking in and out of the same house doing your same stuff over and over again.
And then
feeling
like,
trapped
until one of them sets herself free in a way.
By breaking the glass.
Turning the knife into or turning the key into a knife, you know, and then. That's why I asked the happy ending, because to me it's almost like this is a happy ending the same way like Michette's a happy ending, where like you almost achieve freedom through death.
Freedom, yeah.
And that's why also I brought the water in all three of the movies, almost her like, almost wanting to be in water away from land, you know, because like water is almost like more free, and that's like how I see it in a way, you know, more flowing, like more about just movement versus like stasis, you know.
Most definitely.
It's P. Adam Sidney, who I said like he's like the one of the OG writers of the Avant-Garde, historians especially. He called Meshes the Afternoon as a Columbian finding moment for the American Avant-Garde, like which is kind of, you know, obviously really
Columbian finding,
like
I don't know what that means.
Like, you know, Columbus finding America.
Yes, okay, that's
like
why I thought you were saying. That's why I said Columbus.
He calls it Columbian finding.
I was like, is this something to do with like cartel?
No, like Columbus. Christopher Columbus finding America, like that.
That's what I thought it was.
That
but
guy, by the way, not a good guy at all.
Yeah, hopefully he didn't mean it negative like that, but just in terms of majorness, in terms of importance. And then honestly, like, yes, I have some stuff directly about the films, but like I said, this is more like maybe to talk about the ideas that come from the films that I want to. And this one specifically, I actually want it's kind of a continuation on this idea of presentation versus representation, but it's more about how I said she didn't like Freudian psychoanalysis or symbolism interpretations of this film, and it's like, it's almost funny because this film almost seems ripe for it. Like, almost seems like she's trying to do that.
So wait,
you know? So
would you say like she wouldn't like Buñuel?
No. Buñuel hated symbols. That's the thing. Like, but Buñuel's interesting because she didn't like surrealism for some of this like overly use of a symbolic use. And Bresson does. Buñuel does have symbols like that. You could say like, but that's interesting. I don't know if she would like Buñuel. I don't know. I can't think if she talked about.
Well, I mean, he made an experimental.
Especially the early ones. Yeah. She definitely saw that one.
Which that one doesn't have symbols according to Buñuel. So.
That's true. Well, because that's the idea. They were trying to just be like, no, we're just trying to on the spot, just whatever comes to our heads.
Well, he has that quote, "No symbols of any kind" or whatever, specifically for that movie. Like that was something about that they had, like their agreement while making it. So.
Exactly, dude. Which is funny because all the surrealists love Freud, but what they loved about Freud was the unconscious part. not the
conscious part.
the unconscious. This idea of like him bringing the unconscious to the like as an element of reality almost. But to hold on, let me get a drink really quick. She gives this idea of basically it's almost like she says it's almost insulting to an author of a film or any kind of text where you come in with your ideas of symbols and you don't know what the author's intention was beforehand. And she like gives us this idea of like she says, quote, "When an author is delicate in reference to love or sex, it very well may be that he intends it as a delicate experience. Or, as artist, he may prefer to leave such a lyric, exalted experience to the imagination of the audience, rather than confine it and limit it to the crudities of his technique. And what right have we then to shout out that what right have we then to shout out that which he intended to have the qualities of a whisper, or destroy his counterpoints, or to define that which he, in considered humility, found himself undefinable? To do so would be to destroy the integrity which he has carefully created, to destroy the work of art itself." And like I think I said this earlier, but she even like got to the point where she stopped screening Meshes of the Afternoon because like it just kept getting these kind of overly symbolic readings and stuff. Especially like this idea of her being one of the early feminist filmmakers, kind of retroactively, which I mean she definitely was, but definitely not in this kind of like symbolic. Everything has to have this kind of meaning. That's why I'm using this image. And she even says this idea of psychoanalysis even implies that the artist doesn't create out of the nature of his instrument, but it's mainly using the instrument to convey a reality that existed before. Another way of saying representation. In this case, psychoanalytic theories. It almost implies that the artist is just trying to get these theories out there, and they're just using film as this kind of medium instead of like considering what the film instrument does itself. And she makes this great point of this idea of the difference between a personal dream and an impersonal work of art, because a lot of people compare the two. Yeah. But she's like they're different for a reason. This impersonal aspect. Because she says there's a quote where she says, quote, "I make my pictures for what happens after the dream, for the waking that follows." And then, honestly, this is the last thing I have on Meshes, because I think this is actually the best kind of quote of what the ending means, in terms of, and this is why I asked the happy and sad question, because I actually, especially this time, it seems like a very happy ending to me. This idea of like breaking a mirror on the water to kind of free yourself from this almost. She feels trapped in the situation.
No, that's like you said, the cycle. Yeah, that's why I was saying it's like neither to me, because like it's just like it just depends on your reading.
Yeah, definitely. Like she wouldn't say like that. Definitely means that, But why did you get something else out of it, or?
Well, there's just the obvious like.
Well, because that's the thing. It doesn't end right there. It would actually help my argument if it ended there, but it does end with the kind of graphic shots.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she like commits suicide or whatever. Like that's not.
That's why I mentioned Musha.
That's not like good. Usually, I mean, generally it's like that would be a sad ending. You would think. If you just like, it's a suicide.
Yes, 100%.
But then, as you said, it could be freeing.
Especially, it's a film, that's the same with the Mouchette. It's a film.
Which I guess the Mouchette ending is like also another great example of that.
Oh yeah, that's why I brought it up. Like, because like the more I've watched it, it's like that's a happy ending because it's like I said, freedom and death. Especially through art, like the death in art. This idea of like you're not actually killing yourself in reality. Like that's the thing. Reality is not art.
Bressan's a little more literal too, because like he literally like. Before that shows the shot of like the bird releasing from its cage or whatever.
That is, he's making the association.
So it's like,
and it just ends with like a very romantic song, almost like a happy song. If like the music at the end.
Oh yeah, I don't
yeah. There's like some kind of score at the end, which is like the first time the music really plays.
Yeah.
But let me read this quote and then we'll go to Outland. She says, quote, "A child looks out at the world through eyes like clear windows, really looking outward. Then the individual needs to justify history that has begun to exist within him. The window silvers out over and thickens, and finally we're confronted by a mirror in which we see nothing but ourselves, the affirmation of ourselves over and over again. We no longer learn. We see ourselves and we know it. For any human being, it is important to try and keep as many holes in that mirror as possible. This is necessary in works of art because the experience of art is essentially an autocratic one. A work of art demands the temporary surrender of any personal system. The person who surrenders then possesses a new experience. That is growth. It is the growth of traveling in another mind and knowing it. Unquote.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that's specifically about Atlan that's the sticks out in your head?
Just like the kind of wandering and like seeing all these different, like meeting different types of people is really cool. Like as I was saying, the kind of like Alice in Wonderland type thing.
Especially the way like it moves from location.
I love the beach.
Yeah.
The beach.
The beach. This is the one where I'm pretty sure she's crawling across the table to watch the chess game, and then it just cuts to the chess game being played at the beach or something.
Yes.
Love that shit.
Did Bergman bite
Love
that?
that shit.
Is Bergman?
Actually,
I
someone
honestly
did
wanted to
mention-
know if the same thing, but I feel like the Bergman isn't like the Seventh Seal
Well,
based on a story though.
There's actually a writer of Maya Deren who wrote named Lucy Fisher. A different the writer I read, Sarah Keller, she mentions Lucy Fisher. That's how I know about this. She mentions that she wrote about a comparison between those Maya Deren's use of chess and Bergman's.
Yeah.
And she kind of mentions how, like, even if you notice how Seventh Seal ends compared to Atlan, like Atlan's a much more open ending compared to Seventh Seal's like use of chess.
Yeah.
The kind of like openness, like the reason why she loved chess was like the kind of openness of the game for like the infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
You know. She even apparently saw sports. That's why I'm like, so I'd love to see what she thought of the sports now. Maybe she'd hate it.
Which sport would you show her?
Maybe basketball. I don't know. What's the most rhythmic sport?
Soccer.
Tennis.
Soccer. Actually, soccer is great.
Soccer would be the most rhythmic, probably.
Or tennis, honestly.
That's tennis, yeah.
Especially the 1v1 stuff. I don't know, but she liked the more like kind of bodies, the dance kind of element. That's why I said basketball too.
Sure, Alcaraz
Some Spurs 2014 offense.
Oh god.
You just
beautiful game.
gotta admit that soccer.
No, basketball's up there. What? I'm not. I mean, soccer. It could be more than one sport. We can show her multiple
No,
sports.
we need to show her Lori Marcus.
All we know is we're not showing her baseball, right?
No, we're definitely showing her baseball too. Baseball was around whenever she
Not
was
really rhythmic baseball.
All these sports were around whenever she was alive.
Yeah, but okay, basketball back then is not the same.
So it's like every sport.
I mean, baseball is not the
That's
same
why I'm
sport
like
it was back
some of
then.
these sports were like Ross Lane's hating on sports, or was it Ross Lane that was hating on sports?
Yeah, Ross
yeah,
Lane.
yeah. It's like he didn't see the true sports of peak athleticism.
Yeah, there were no superhumans back then.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, like fucking Giannis now or whatever. Like Wemby, like fucking Ross Lane.
Wemby is an
Wemby.
alien.
Like okay. No, because she even says like chess and sports are a form of secularized ritual, and what she liked about them was that their prestige is contingent on the form itself as the authority. That's what she liked. Was like basically like this idea of like the prestige from a sport comes from the sports itself. You know. Yeah. I just had to read this quote because this is a quote from Marcel Duchamp, who's I think kind of a Dada and like surrealist
I know who's that. I think I've heard of.
Artist. We actually did we do one of his films last week?
I think we did.
Return to Reason?
Is that when, yeah, we did.
We did Return to Reason.
Yeah, that's where I heard the name. Duchamp though is a crazy last name. Duchamp.
Yeah.
Duchamp.
But he's less known for his films and his like other I don't know that much about him. But anyway, he has this great quote on chess because he says, "quote Why isn't my chess playing an art activity? The chess game is very plastic. You can construct it. It's mechanical sculpture. And with chess, one creates beautiful problems, and that beauty is made with head and in hands."
Yeah.
I like it.
In the second paragraph.
I mean, that's why even more like basketball and soccer is like even more like that than even chess. You know, just like creating beauty with hand in your heads.
In the second paragraph of his Wikipedia page, it says he was the first artist to elevate a toilet to the status of an art form.
Okay, why did you... I mean, that is kind of... Like I said, he was like a Dada surrealist kind of author. I mean, artist.
So now you know something else about him.
Sarah Keller also points this out about the chess game since we're talking about it. In this movie, she liked the idea of both the master of the game and the chess piece being played by the same person.
Yeah.
And basically this idea of the relation of subject and object, being one. Which is she's kind of trying to get that out of those ideas throughout the film. The way that even the film was cut with a.
Dude, okay, sorry. Because I was like, I swear I've heard this guy from somewhere. Because when I read the toilet thing, I was like, I feel like I've heard that somewhere. You know Conductor Williams? The hip hop producer?
Oh, yeah.
He produced a Drake song called Stories About My Brother. And in his production, he made a video. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about like the stuff he produces. And he was inspired by Marcel Duchamp for the sample that he chose. Because like, I think he said something about like Marcel Duchamp was like, because like he brought the toilet as like he brought something that was like he made something to art by not like obstructing it or something to do with that. I forgot exactly what it was.
I mean, this is not my deck. I don't know if he was going to say the same thing, but there is something to. I don't even know if it's to say this, but like why a lot of people don't like modern hip hop is there's some more experimental aspects to some of it.
Yeah.
That's almost like designed to. It's supposed to be almost gradient initially, because it's supposed to be non-conventional or like the same way with film, trying to create a new film, a truly new film.
Yeah.
Because you hear rappers talk about this all the time, or artists, the idea of creating a new sound. Like, oh, this artist has a new sound, like something I haven't heard. Like that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for a different day. To go back to Atland, first I wanted to read this quote from this is the most random guy, but this is the founder of IMAX, Graham Ferguson, said this about Maya Deren. He said, quote, "She came from the sea. If you've ever seen her film Outland, in her mind she was a sea creature. Her bedroom was an underwater grotto full of shells. The ceiling was a painting of sea creatures, painted with phosphorescent paint. You really felt as if you were under the sea at night. It was an apartment of love, of beauty," unquote. Which is, I mean, I was kind of saying about like just her personality, like you can kind of see yourself in these films too, even if they're not like specifically about her. And also this idea of just the water being so important to her. And then just some kind of I already mentioned she wanted, like, this is maybe in a way her first kind of true film, because she specifically wanted this to be her film, outside of Alexander Hammond's influence and, co-direction, basically. And even though she even said it was she didn't have any hatred towards Hammond, like she said it was a perfect collaboration between the two, It's that she kind of wanted to find her own style in a way. This movie apparently cost at the time $415.65, and it was made in over 6 months. Which I mean, I don't know how much 440 comes out today, which is probably a few $1,000s. Probably in today's money. Like you said, it goes through so many different places.
I just found the explanation of why he explained it. The Marcel Duchamp thing, Conductor Williams.
Okay, what is it?
To create a ready-made, he's like he's like basically he admired like he would take an ordinary mass projected product, like mass-produced product, which he did not make himself, and then he placed it in an art context to create new thoughts. That's what Conductor Williams liked about Marcel Duchamp.
Interesting. Dang. Yeah.
And then so basically he was like he sampled like a sample just straight up in the song with no manipulations. This is what Conductor Williams did for this song. And he sent it to Drake.
I need to hear the song. Is it good?
It's a good song, yeah.
Interesting. But like honestly, just the idea of this is what art does. Like my Deren central point, this idea of taking an element and it has an element in itself has no value outside of how you use it. So you can take it in a whole new context and use it however. Yeah. Even a toilet, in Duchamp's case. I don't know if maybe that's how he meant it, but yeah, like because like context matters, especially like in a museum seeing something like that.
Yeah.
$460 in 1944.
Yes, was
about $8,500 today. Dang. So like nothing, honestly.
No,
for a movie,
obviously nothing. Yeah. Especially for like how many, like it feels like she goes to so many places and it does so much, This is one thing she says and it kind of made you mentioned this at the beginning of this episode where you mentioned Maya. You liked her. One of the things she does is like, she like will like be looking at normal, and then she turns her head, and it's like a new place or something. You know, like there's like a new image. You said something like that.
Yeah.
And Sarah Keller puts it in a way of like, she does this. She has this way of balancing the two dimensions of time, which is its steadying continuity, and then also its tendency to lead to another worm-like place. And basically both those aspects in the same film, because she mentioned this multiple times, and I don't know if you guys realized it this time, but she does. I definitely noticed it watching this time watching. She will set up a pattern of shot, reverse shot, like in classical cinema. And Sarah Keller mentions this, like in classical cinema, a shot, reverse shot is usually there to keep the continuity even going further. You know, like to establish continuity. And she does it like she establishes the repetition, and then like one of the reverse shots will all of a sudden be a new place. Yeah. You know, just like and then all of a sudden like basically emphasizing the discontinuity of a certain place.
Yeah.
You know, by doing the shot, by using that same kind of technique that a normal film would use to establish continuity. And then basically this idea of that's actually why she's using the shot reverse shot in the film itself, is to establish this continuity. Because I mentioned that last week too with the experimental filmmakers. Like that was one of the, you could say, their central principles is this idea of discontinuity over conventional, or what they would call conventional or continuity. You know. Yeah. Let me read what Sarah Keller says about that, because she says, quote, "Conventional patterns work only because they simultaneously render invisible their necessary discontinuities. Deren makes those discontinuities highly visible. The action is predicated on their disconcerting revelation. Through these patterns, she represents the tension between subjective and objective experience in cinematic terms, through ruptures in continuity of the depicted experience. This pattern's movement from shot to shot evidences discontinuity even while it follows the conventions that should render it fluid and continuous," unquote. And then last thing I have on this movie that before we go to Ritual is Sarah Keller kind of mentions, and Blake already mentioned this too, her emphasis on the body, basically what creates the movement in this film from scene to scene. You know, as Sarah Keller puts it, is in Deren's films, the body and movement binds fragments. The body, which is more often than not fragmented for closer views in a movie, becomes the foundation for connecting, for making complete and congruous spaces. Fragments are cut together to create a new world that exists only on film, which contrives a space that, because it uses pieces of the world as its foundation, and yet links them in estranging ways, has both the practicality of its power to, quote, "show it to me," unquote, and the impractical magic of impossibility. Not insignificantly, it is both the body before and behind the camera, here and elsewhere in Deren's work, her own body, that fuses incomplete parts into an unsunderable whole, unquote. Alright. Last movie. Ritual and Transfigured Time. Honestly, my favorite of the three. Like, watching it this time.
No, it's really
like,
good.
just like off the top, it's like my, like how good the third act is, like with the statues and stuff.
Yes.
Calling third act is funny.
I mean, okay, yeah, third environment, I guess you could say. That's probably more
how you
accurate.
get the MCU heads to watch this movie.
Okay.
Third act, just like really, you gotta wait for that to happen.
See, the third act, as Dany calls it, is actually whenever I made the Cocteau connection for real. Just because I've been reading this biography on Cocteau, and there was something in there about him making a reality basically just of, like, it's the reality of this of the camera, or the reality of the movie or something. Like, he doesn't want you to bring your reality from the outside. Like, that's why he likes making these mythological movies. And watching this movie, especially towards the end, like, she is, like, it feels like you're in a different reality. Like, you're not supposed to be thinking about the here and now. Mm-hmm. Basically, like, you're in this movie's reality at this moment.
100%. Especially, like, this is what, I mean, this is what makes her so special, is, like, she's doing this this is, like, 15 minutes or whatever. Yeah. You know, like, just, like, for some films, it just takes them 15 minutes to get started, you know? And she's, like, created a whole style, like, just so many things happen in the movie. And honestly, it's like a. I think I mentioned this. I think it was one of the episodes we did, like our favorite director. It was either favorite directors or favorite movies, and I picked Maya Deren for something. But I said something that like I said at the time, and it's like something that's already stuck with me was every image in her films like has like new information, in a way like that's why every image because like how much the movie changes with every time she shows something new. You know, everything like the whole movie could change based on what happens next. Like to me, I mean, we didn't even talk about like I said Atlan specifically, but the whole movie changes to me at the very end when she starts running away, and that's when she sees all her past selves. You know, as they're all like stuck in that same spot.
Yeah.
Doing like their human like the Atlan task, and she's trying to go back to the water. You know, like that whole movie changed, like shifts just based on that one new moment. But I don't know, Luke, what about you? What did you think of Ritual? Is there anything specific?
It's honestly might be my favorite too. If I'm being actually for real.
Like, why wouldn't you be?
Well, I was kind of like joking around about like.
Private Life. Oh yeah, okay. I forgot.
But like when I actually like, if I'm like analyzing it from the lens of like Maya Deren, like what you would think of her style would be, or just like her style in general. Probably this one. It's like, I just like the way the bodies move, and like it's just like as you said, it's like a completely different world. I've never seen anything like it really. I also like the way the guy skips at the end.
The man,
the statue,
the statue, the evil, I guess the evil character you could say.
Yeah, if he wants to.
Just some stuff before that I want to point out about this movie, because obviously two very essential words to her were, I mean, honestly, basically every word in this title you could say were essential words to her: ritual, transfigured, and time. Sarah Keller points out that even compared to the previous two films, Outland and Meshes, that even those films have a constant identity. In this film, even the constant identity is at flux, changing between the two people, Maya Deren and the dancer, where they basically are interchangeable.
Yeah,
that makes me think of Buñuel too, with obscure object. Basically, where he's changing the two actresses, just throughout. You know,
it's also like Rivette and Sully and Julie.
Oh yeah. No, there is some very Rivettian stuff to her because obviously I was gonna I read the quote that I read about the end of Outland by Sarah Keller. This idea of like basically using the practicality of cinema, you know, it's like showing it to me reality versus also the impractical magic of cinema. You know, we talked about that specifically with Rivette. You know, where it's like his movies feel so like he's just filming everyday reality, but they have this such a magical quality while watching it, you know? And that's not because of any, like, specific image. You know, it's the rhythm and, basically all these elements we've been talking about. The time elements of a film, you know? I
mean, the fact that it just starts out with, like, someone making a circle with the yarn, basically.
Oh, the weaving of
the weaving of the yarn or whatever.
Sarah Keller says there's 3 sections, and she says the first part is like the weaving of time section.
Oh, definitely, because I was like, that's like the thread of fate or something that she's cutting. Like,
and also, I didn't even know this until I read this, but basically those 3 women are also supposed to represent like the 3 muses for art itself, because Maya is a filmmaker, Rita is a dancer, and then the other woman that we see at the end, she's like a writer.
The older lady.
She's
in
a writer.
The background.
Yeah.
The shot of all 3 of them in like the one frame is crazy.
Oh,
it's so good.
Honestly, this has one of maybe this is like when I think of like the idea of like a simple reverse shot or like a character turning their head and then seeing something new is in this one where the writer, the old lady who's standing at the end of the room, she's in this really dark room with the bright light shining on her from the other side. Well, when she turns her head, it just cuts to this like all of a sudden crowded room,
like ballroom, basically, like
just insane. Basically, Bill Nichols points out the reason why she was so interested in this kind of ritual aspect of film. Outside of the Haitian voodoo and stuff that's obviously really important to her, but I just don't have time to get into it. This is maybe a short form of that. He says the interchangeable protagonists are to address the ritual aspects of journey and quest and discovery that are less personal than the social collective. And so that's why by this point she's kind of interested in like how ritual asserts socially the social and collective aspects of ritual. And then he says this is actually her quote where she says ritual form is not the source of dramatic action, but it's but the action comes from somewhat depersonalized element of the whole, if that makes sense. Basically where the ritual form in a ritual form, the action doesn't come from a single individual. You know, it comes from the relation of the whole elements.
Yeah.
You know, and this is actually where I have the Rivette quote. Because do you remember the quote I read about when he was talking about The Hand, or his review of The Hand, when he's talking about Beyond a Reasonable Doubt? He's talking about why that film works, like outside of any individual.
Yeah, I think
he gets a Fellini dig in there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not gonna read the Fellini part this time.
Thank God.
But he says, quote, "Destruction of the scene, since no scene is treated for its own sake, all that subsists is a series of pure moments, of which all that is retained is a mediatory aspect. Destruction even of the characters. Each of them here is really no more than what he says and what he does. Who are Dana Andrews, Joan Fontaine, her father? Questions like this no longer have any meaning, for the characters have lost all individual quality, are not more than human concepts, but in consequence that they are all the more human for being less individual." And especially that last line, like that's where the dance element comes in. You know, this is why that's why I see the similarities between Rivette and Maya Deren. This idea of you become more human by being less individual. You know, and that's in a way you could say why people like dance or any of these kind of art forms. You know,
The social aspect of it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The depersonalized aspect of it,
Yeah.
and almost feeling like you're more individual because of it. You know. And then she even says a different point where like she says the artist should be like the shaman who creates depersonalized art objects designed to help others comprehend their social conditions, and that depersonalization is important to her because of that aspect. Like the shaman doesn't create just for himself, you know, he creates something depersonalized so that other people can comprehend their social condition as well, the same way she saw like these ancient shamans. She saw this in her essay Ritual and Transfigured Time. She saw this concept for the film of creating dance out of non-dance elements, and to me that's maybe that's where I see the dance in like Rivette, you know, where like it's not necessarily they're actually dancing on film, but there's like a dance out of non-dance elements, you know, the same way she's kind of doing it here. And she says like the only time we actually see real dancing is with the statue and her kind of at the beginning, you know, when they're kind of dancing together a little bit.
In the ballroom, technically, kind of.
No, but they're not dancing.
Yeah.
In her way, they're not dancing. They're just it's this
Moving
idea of
around.
using cinema time to basically show certain moments. To where she says like if you only showed these moments of a conversation of a social aspect, it would look like people are dancing.
Yeah.
You know, the way they go from person to person, like. The goal of a conversation is not just to talk to one person; it's to go to the next person, you know, and just to keep everything flowing.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of what she's trying to emphasize, the same way like a dance is. Because she says in a dance film or a film dance, the movements are related to each other as a choreographic concept, both immediately and over the film as a whole. And then she she gives the example of. Just this idea of like the style of the film, why it feels so unique at times, but also feels so seamless. It's not accidental. It's like, so like when we're in the party scene, it's like if you notice the scene becomes more and more unnatural over time. Like it's first natural. It's like a little more natural at the beginning, and as she's filming it, it becomes more and more unnatural. So then when we get to the sudden cut of like this new location, new characters, new dancer. The movements feel similar because how she set up the previous scene with their movements kind of like you were mentioning those dancing at the ending.
Yeah.
They do look like they're dancing.
Yeah.
Because she's relating the two concepts, you know, how they're moving in the actual dancers. with like how she ends this previous scene of this party, you know. And then kind of my last thing I had on this film to go back to maybe the Cocteau point and this kind of modernist or classical artist as they saw themselves was she herself says she saw herself as a classicist that was opposed to abstraction and surrealism, was because classicism is defined not according to elements of content, whether they be factual, fictional, abstract, psychological, but instead it's a concept of method, which she says is a controlled manipulation of elements into form, which then transcends or transfigures the elements themselves. And that's why she calls herself a classicist kind of artist, opposed to artists or movements that are more focused on the actual content themselves, you know. But yeah, that's all I had. Like I said, this was an excuse really to talk about some of my, in a way, to talk about some of my favorite things about film, which is, you could say I'm using Maya Deren, but also she's part of the reason why these are some of my favorite things in film in the first place. So, but yeah, that's Maya Deren. I want to close with I think I lost it. Actually, yeah, I have it. It's a very simple quote, but I'm going to end with this. Maya Deren said, quote, "Simplicity is not the achievement of subtractions. It is a synthesis of complexities," unquote. But yeah, that's Maya Deren. Next week, we're doing Stan Brakhage and Jordan Belson. Two, you could say, very abstract filmmakers.
So what would you title next week's episode?
Stan Brakhage and Jordan Belson.
Okay, if you were like,
this week is called Not My Deren.
You couldn't use their names. What's the thing linking them together?
That's what I'm going to ask you guys next week. You'll have to tell me.
We're doing the episode.
I still don't know exactly why. They feel very similar to me in some ways.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. You better
especially compared. Actually, it's more compared to this next. All these are building off each other in some way because, like I said, Brakhage is kind of even though he loved Maya Deren, he's kind of opposed to a lot of her filmmaking. And actually, Jonas Mekas even says this. Like, even though he loved Maya Deren, she was still part of this classicist part of filmmaking. But what changed for him was when he saw Stan Brakhage's films for the first time and realized there was this whole other aspect of filmmaking, this kind of personal aspect. You know, the one that we've been talking about Maya Deren doesn't like. She wants a depersonalized art object. Yeah. Stan Brakhage's the exact opposite. Like, he's filming his own kids constantly, you know, like everything is, like, he believes everything is personal, you know. Yeah. And I haven't seen Jonas Mekas' films, but he made diary films, you know. Yeah. Jordan Belson, like, he's not directly personal, but you'll see he's very personal in terms of like he wants you to have a personal experience with it. Maybe if I can put it that way. Yeah, but that's next week. Yeah. Until next week, hope to see you floating through the clouds.